Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We made it. I don't
We made it.
know if it's any better, but we made it to the other side. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank y'all for tuning in to The Whole Child. And I'm just very excited to be here in the new year with this programming and this podcast and the phenomenal work that, we're doing out here in these streets to advocate for our kids. And we need to really have some intentional conversations. So, Kimberlyn, what are we talking about today?
Child, it's a insurrection. So we need to talk through that. Actually, in full transparency, we were trying to figure out if we would go live today, and we're kind of like, we need to do it because we really need to talk about the state of the country right now, and frankly, how we are dealing with it as Black people existing in this nation right now. Um, it's been a pretty interesting road. So maybe I will start off by asking this. What was your initial response, right? So it's Wednesday about 1:30, 2 o'clock. I can't remember when stuff really popped off, but it's Wednesday, January 6th afternoon. And where were you when the insurrection broke out?
I was at home and I was watching it unfold on social media, of course, but warnings were already given. We knew that this was going to happen. They were
Hmm.
planning and plotting this on social media. Like this was something that many people were flagging to say, hey, I mean, this is something that they're talking about in these 4chan groups and these anonymous pages, and they
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
different websites created to have these conversations. And now there's like a big surprise. And I was just shocked at how many people were surprised when literally all the information was on social media, but a lot of people didn't see that information, I guess, or wasn't paying attention until the reality hit them.
So you were shocked at the shock.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you like, so you said you were at home. So, like, paint the picture for us, for our listeners and our viewers, right? And for history's sake, let's just back up and say this. Today is January 12th, 2021. 6 days ago, there was an attempted coup on the White House by a bunch of domestic terrorists, also known as white supremacists, also known as Make America Great Again supporters and whatnot of the guy who currently sits in the White House for another 8 days. Um, yeah. So there was this insurrection that happened. Okay, so paint the picture. You're sitting at home
So I'm
and
sitting So I'm sitting at home, I'm at my computer, I'm working, and when I work, I have like a live stream of like different events that, I tune into, whether it's stocks or current events, and I
mhm.
have that on my screen. So I'm just working and I'm seeing the live footage of what's happening at the Capitol. And I'm like, oh, well, their plan worked. And I'm just looking at all the people that were shocked, and I'm reading some of the tweets on social media, and I'm just sitting back like, y'all, like there was a warning before destruction. And then I'm shocked because I'm like, the fact that they were able to execute the plan, knowing that it was premeditated and knowing that they had been planning this, and there could have been way more attempts to
Mhm.
stop what happened. And that's where I was shocked. So I was just sitting there, just on my computer, just watching the foolishness, on my computer at home. And I'm like, well, there was a warning before destruction. Here we are now, and I hope people have some intentional conversations. This is exactly what I be talking about all the time with social
Mhm.
media and the damaging effects it has. And here we go, another case in point where there's people with the same ideology that will get together, and because they believe that they're right in their ideology, because they join together with the same group of people on social media,
Right.
they think that this stuff is okay and they believe that they're right. And there's nothing
Mhm.
that anyone could do to tell them different. They believe that what they did was right.
Yeah, yeah. So were you kind of like, let me eat my popcorn, or did you kind of just go back to work? Um, what did that look like for you?
So I was working. I have stuff to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
I watched it and I was like, look, I got money to make. Um, it's above me now.
Uh-huh.
This was something that warnings were given. Like I just don't understand. So I'm literally watching this chaos unfold, and there's different websites that even gave you more access to see like that the media did not
Right.
pick up. There's a
Right.
website called BitChute where you can literally see people streaming while they're at the Capitol.
Mm,
I literally saw a video where a woman got shot.
mm.
Like
Wow.
that is on their platform. Like that's social media. And so a lot of people think that, oh well, I just see this little stuff on my feed and I'm able to see the world. No, there are layers upon layers of websites that people have access to, and some people don't even know about it. So I was just working as this unfolded. I mean, I already knew that this was happening. They knew that this was happening. So it's just really sad. What about you?
So for the viewers, I want y'all to go ahead and drop what you were doing in the comments, right? So when you found out, and what was your reaction? So I was working as well. I had actually just gotten out of a meeting with a school and facilitated an activity, and it was like really great, like really successful. Like I was high fiving myself, like you did that, sis, like you killed it, right? So I said to myself, let me go downstairs and grab a snack right quick and catch up on what's happening, for a few moments before my next meeting. So I go, I grab my snack, sit down on the sofa, kick my feet up, turn on the TV, and I said, let me see what's happening on the news, right? Because I really have not watched the news intently. I've shared with y'all before, like I can really be a news junkie. And so I was really intentional about unplugging, right, from the news. So I hadn't really caught up with the state of the world, but something said, turn on the news. So I go ahead, I turn on the news. And I'm lying. That's not the first thing I did. The first thing I did is I checked my Facebook, right? So I have not really been consuming information. I've been putting out information, but not really consuming information, right? So I saw someone's post that was like, what's going on at the Capitol? And then I see another post and they like, oh, hell no. Nah. Like, this is crazy, something, something. So then I was like, let me turn on the news and see what's going on. So I
Right.
turn on the news and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. These fools having a world class temper tantrum right now. You gotta be kidding me. So I'm eating I actually had some tortilla chips, right? I wish I would have had popcorn, but I'm eating my tortilla chips, my little snack for my next meeting, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. Like I probably said that about 15 times to myself. Okay, like you got to be kidding. Like y'all really doing this. Okay. Now I was not shocked, as you said. There were many warnings about this, right? And I don't live anywhere near where you live in tech world and internet space. But just in my spirit, I had already been feeling like this civil war type of environment was going to occur. So even before I moved here up north, I had shared on my Facebook page as well as with you and some of our friends that I gotta go up north, y'all, because it's about to be a civil war. So if your girl got to escape to Canada, I need to be close. Okay. So I already knew like there was stuff in the atmosphere, but I had a very much like you got to be kidding me. Like they are the caucasity right now that is happening that they're doing this, right? So that was my initial response. Okay, so then I have another meeting. So I text one of my colleagues and I'm like, we still having this meeting. This meeting is at 4 o'clock, right? So I'm like, we still having this meeting while they up there trying to try to take over the Capitol. Like we about to still have a meeting. Like that's what we doing. So
Right.
my colleagues like, yeah, yeah, we're gonna go forth with this meeting. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, be prepared for people to feel some type of way. Sips tea. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we get into the second meeting, and the energy is clear, right? Um, and I see it on people's faces, but nobody really says anything. So I get out of that meeting that night. I'm still watching more for hilarity's sake, right? So I'm kind of like, child, let me go get my popcorn, grab me a drink, honey, and kick my feet up and watch this foolishness. So I was really looking at it from a spectator type of view, right? So what Sky said, I thought this could not have been black folks. Like I definitely knew we wasn't up there in the crowd, okay? Like I very clearly saw this was not us, right? So that was my initial response. I'm laughing, like I'm looking at all the memes, like this is just so absolutely ridiculous. But then at some point, and I think this was everyone's thoughts, right? So not that it just could not have been us because we would not do something like that, but it also could not have been us because we would have been dead had we tried that, right? So then the gravity of that started sinking in. That this entire summer we had protest after protest about humanitarian rights, about civil rights, about our rights as Black people. And I remembered back to the one particular protest that there was where the protesters were across the street from the White House. And dude leaves out the White House. For those of y'all that don't know, I don't dignify him with a number, title, nor name. Okay, so he is dude that lives at 1600 Black Lives Matter Plaza. Okay, the one who currently occupies the White House. Okay, just so we're clear, because they probably like, who is she talking about, dude? That dude. So dude decides that he's gonna walk across the street to the church to hold the Bible upside down and had unleashed all of this terror on the peaceful protesters who were asking to be seen, right? That's the first thing I thought about. And I'm like, well, this this really would have been something had we had the audacity to enter into these spaces that our ancestors created, built from the ground up. Um, this, wow, this is really something. Okay. So I have that thought. So then I think to myself, I got to go to work tomorrow. What is this about to look like? Because my work is in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the conversations that I'm consistently having on a daily basis are about confronting bias and dealing with systemic racism. So I said, Lord Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
I got to go and talk to some people tomorrow, and I just don't know what they are going to bring into the space. So I didn't think though that I was bothered. Like I really was just kind of, I noticed it. I noticed, acknowledged that there are two justice systems. Like I had that moment, but I really didn't think I was bothered. Like I really was just like, that's white people problems. This ain't got nothing to do with me. Okay. And just kind of went on about my day. So Thursday, I remember looking at my computer all day to see who was going to say something. Now, I'm in Pennsylvania. So, for any of you all who are unfamiliar with Pennsylvania, as I was and still am on many days because I just got here in August, the saying is that there is Philadelphia and there is Pittsburgh, and then there's Pennsylvania is in the middle. I call it Pennsylvania or Pennsylvania, right? Now, I'm from New Orleans, and I've had quite a lot of experience with those who um, are in the deep south, right? That's what it's like here in Pennsylvania. And that's really evident in a lot of the spaces that I occupy, right? So I'm having my meetings and I'm acknowledging what's happened and challenging those who are in the space. But got through Thursday, I think, pretty well. Um, I had the necessary conversations that needed to be had, but I also noticed that there were absences of statements. Now I work in an educational space, so I'm looking for y'all to say something because how we gonna paint this in history class? What are we saying to the kids at the school? Like what? How are we addressing this? Right?
Right.
Um, and that was very interesting. I'm gonna just say, some chose to address it, some chose not to address it. So then my job is to challenge those who chose not to address it to get to the root of why they didn't address it because there was an attack on democracy. Ain't too many ways we could dress this up, y'all, and make this something else. So what are we saying, right? So that was Thursday. So by the time Friday came and there were the absence of these statements, I started to think about maybe this is having a bigger impact on me than I thought it originally was.
Mm.
Um, Maybe this is bothering me more than I thought it originally did because I started out on Wednesday like, boy, these white people crazy, right? And then
Right.
by Friday, I'm like, wait a minute. Like,
Hmm.
we really gonna act like this didn't happen? Like we really gonna let this just pass through the news cycle? Like, up on to the next one. We just like we really doing that
Right.
today? Um, so then I just kept thinking like, I think this, I think this is, I think this is really bothering me. I think that I need to figure out why, right? Because I'm not surprised that this is America. This is America. This has been America. This is how America started. Like this is what Americans do. Um, this is the soul of who this country is. Um, so why am I bothered? Like, why am I surprised by all of this? And it really goes back to our kids. How are we explaining to them what's happening? How are we explaining to them that over the summer, people who looked like them were being accosted in the street, met with riot gear, tear gas and maced, and hit with rubber bullets and bean bags, and arrested and chased and targeted and murdered? And now we got thousands and thousands of whites that literally broke into the Capitol. Not just for history's sake. Let's just put out there all the types of things that happen. Not just that we it's not a this is not we, this is not inclusive right now. They stormed the Capitol. They had assistance on the inside from Capitol Police, from elected officials, from various people, and we know this because the terrorists got to places such as Representative Clyburn's office, Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office, and they speak about how intricate and confusing it is to navigate your way around the Capitol. Like you have to know where you're going to get to where you're going. These are not places you just take a left and be like, oh, look, it's Nancy Pelosi's office. Like you had to like know where you were going. Representative Clyburn talked about how his office, his name ain't even on the door. So how they knew that was his office, right? They talked about how terrorists got from the House side to the Senate side using back corridors. Again, something that's very difficult to do, yet they were able to manage to get onto the Senate floor. So all of those pictures that we've seen with the guy with the zip ties and like all of that, they got onto the Senate floor, got sat in the seat that the
Yeah.
vice president was sitting in and took a picture, right? So processing all of that, but that's not the worst. So then we started hearing about the urine and feces that was all throughout the Capitol. So these terrorists, these disgusting people, urinated and smeared their own feces in the Capitol.
During a global pandemic.
During the global pandemic, no masks, right? That was a part of the agreement. If you come, don't wear masks. Then we find out people like Justice Clarence Thomas's wife ordered 70 or 80 buses to transport people to there. We so this was a well planned insurrection, right? Then, just as of late, we hear that there's the possibility, strong possibility, of even more uprisings over the course of the next few days leading up to Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
So I again ask myself, what are we saying to the children? Because they're watching this, and we can't just act like this isn't happening. And what I realized as I was thinking about that is I was experiencing PTSD. So, PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, I think a lot of times when we think about PTSD, we think about the army or the military, right? They come back from war and they are experiencing PTSD. Um, but we don't necessarily think about it in the context of being Black in America.
Yeah.
So I live near the capital of Pennsylvania. And there is, we had a briefing with FBI this week that there have been verified targets on all 50 state capitals, that Pittsburgh has had a verified attack plan, as well as Philadelphia, right? So then I started thinking about that. So then I go into, okay, I need to make sure that I have enough food. I need to make sure I have groceries. I need to make sure that, I have gas in my car. Do I want to leave, right? Because I work remotely. So would it be better for me to just go somewhere else, right? And kind of write it out for a while. How do I want to exist? Because I have to make sure that I'm not out in the streets. Now, flashback to when they called the election back in November, I was so excited, right? So I'm like skipping down the street to the Wiz Brand New Day, right? Like I'm super excited. And I just so happened to look down this alley and I see a group of armed white supremacists because I live near the Capitol. So that
Wow.
same day, there was a Stop the Steal rally. So they had all converged on the Capitol. So I said, let me take my black behind home, because if something happened to me, like I'm out here by myself, nobody know where I'm at. Like I got to go home, right? I'm from New Orleans. I'm very familiar with white supremacy. So I start thinking about all of that, right? So now I'm kind of like, okay, I need to think about this. I need to I need to make sure everything is aligned, because I don't want to necessarily have to go outside for a little while, because I just don't know what this is going to look like. And in the moment, you kind of just jump into action mode. But when I had quiet time to think through it, I'm like, bro, I shouldn't even have to do this, bro.
Right.
Like, this ain't normal.
A
Like,
Twilight Zone.
like, I should not have to be sitting here thinking through making sure that I have all of my necessities. Even I ordered groceries. I'm not going into the grocery store. I'm going to drive through, put them in my trunk, keep it pushing. Like, I should not have to do this. So when I was thinking about like PTSD, I'm like, I'm carrying all of that around because this should not be life, but it is. And as Black people, this is what we carry with us every day, this burden of existing in this skin. Every single day, we have to think through all of these things and then have to combat all the gaslighting that happens while they are trying to say, no, that didn't happen, or it wasn't really like that, or I didn't mean it, or whatever, when we're talking about all the microaggressions and all the things that happen on a daily basis. So, how does PTSD manifest, right? If y'all wonder, like, I might have a PTSD too. So, one of the things that let me know that I am existing in a state of PTSD is it has been so tough for me to do the smallest things. So I was sharing with Bianca before we went live. I had a mini meltdown before we got onto the show. It felt like every small task was just taking the maximum amount of energy. I needed to eat, but and I needed to cook because I didn't have anything ready. And then I said to myself, like, I don't feel like cooking. Like, do I even have an appetite to eat? Then I was trying to log into Spotify and it wouldn't let me log in. So then I'm like, reset my password. It's like, you don't have an account. So then I'm like, well, make an account. Then it's like, you already have an account. Like, oh my God, I was ready to flip the table. The smallest, the smallest things feel like they take so much energy that you just can't even function. Like you just can't even function. You might find yourself tense, just like super, super tense. So the other thing that started happening today, I'm sitting here and I had got myself a standing desk, right? Because you inspired me, Bianca. So I got myself a standing desk, right? So I've been doing better, by making sure I'm standing up, and all the things and being active and whatnot when my shoulders started hurting. So I'm like, let me stretch a little bit, like my shoulder acting up. Stretch it doesn't it's not helping, right? So then I was like, when did it start like hurting? Like to the point where I'm ready to just cry. Like I can't do anything about it. And it was last week.
Wow.
So now I'm carrying additional stress and tension. And that's where I
Mm.
carry my stress and tension in my shoulders. So you might find that your body is super tense, and you're starting to have aches and pains that may not have necessarily been there, but now you recognize that those aches and pains are happening. Um, Thinking about being snappy, right? With people, they say the smallest thing and you just going off, right? Because your patience short. Like I know I don't went into a few meetings like, say something crazy, I dare you. Go ahead on, try me. Because you're gonna get this work today. Okay? Say something crazy. Right? I don't that's not my normal state of living, right?
Mm.
So your patience is short. Um you might find yourself being emotional, like some people have literally you're watching a commercial or you're watching a show and you are crying, okay, crying, honey, like why why is this touching me to my core like this, like Bridgerton, is it really that deep that I'm sitting here like like is it really that deep right
Right.
now? No, it's not. It's PTSD. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot. But I think that was a realization for me that not that it necessarily made me feel better, but I was able to diagnose what's going on so that I'm able to do targeted things to get myself back into a space of being grounded,
Yeah.
right? And I think that all of this creates this shaky ground and this not really knowing when something is going to pop off, even though we know that something is going to pop off, but not knowing when. And even like, you ever heard somebody say, when you're about to get into a car accident, the reason that you wind up hurting so much when you see it coming is because you're tense up, right? So had you not seen it coming and it just hit you, just out the blue, and you had no idea that it was coming, you're less likely to have harsher injuries. But when you see it coming, you try to brace for it, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like that's what's happening is we're trying to brace for something because we know that something is going to happen, and we're not quite sure what that's going to look like and how that's going to impact our lives. So we're bracing for it. So then when it comes, then we incur the injury because we were trying to brace to prepare ourselves for it. I just thought about that just now.
No,
That
that's
was
good.
pretty
I like
smart.
that.
Yeah,
I
that was
like that.
pretty smart. Just came up with that. But yeah, so that was kind of a big aha for me,
Hmm.
because I really was like, I don't care. I don't care. Like, again, this is white people problems. Like, this has nothing to do with me. But the more that I started to unpack it, I'm like, this is really, really impacting me. And I think it impacts me more because of the spaces that I have to exist in. So I didn't necessarily get a chance to retreat and take a moment. Um, I had to go right back into those spaces and continue having these conversations. And what I noticed this Saturday is I had like all these big dreams in my mind, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna do laundry, I'm gonna fix me some breakfast, I'm gonna set up my office. Like, I had all of these big hopes and dreams. I couldn't get up. Like, I woke up and then I was like, oh, let me take a nap. And I took a nap and then I woke up. I was like, let's try again, right? So I tried again. I was like, I think I need another nap. So I took another nap. Now by this time, it get dark at 5 o'clock. So now it's nighttime, right? So I'm like, it was probably like 9:30. I was like, oh, let me get my day started. 9:30 at night. Like, what the heck? And I still was ready to go to sleep at midnight. I had slept all day. So that's
Hmm.
something else that you might discover is you are so tired or exhausted or drained, and you just, no matter how much you sleep, it's not enough. Or you may find that you are experiencing insomnia and you tired as all get out and can't go to sleep even though you're exhausted, right? So your body, you know how the 2 year olds be like, I ain't sleepy, other girl, lay down, like close your eyes, it'll come, right? But that's what it's like. Like, we're in bed, eyes closed, like, okay,
Hmm.
sleep, where art thou? And sleep don't ever show up because our minds are racing just about all of these things, right? So that's another sign of what's going on. Ashley said, yes, resting but drained, like at the same time. Like, how have I gotten so much rest and I'm still drained? Right.
Right.
So all of that happened. So
Wow.
that's a lie, right?
Yeah.
That's like a whole lie. And I think, especially as black women, but just as black people, we get so used to pushing through,
Hmm.
and just, all right, on to the next day, the time on task, things to do. And our bodies are saying to us, ma'am, sir, I need you to take a moment and acknowledge what's going on here. But we busy, we pushing through. We got all the things to do, calendar booked and busy. Okay. Which is good until we're sitting here burning the candle from both ends because we're not acknowledging the self-care that needs to happen. Um, and we talked about self care quite a few times. I don't know that we got it yet, though. I don't know that I got it yet. Hell, I be the main one sitting here talking about the self care, and ain't took a sip of water all day. Like, sis, you can't even drink a sip of water, girl. Like, how you out here preaching to the people about self care and sis you ain't had a sip of water all day long, girl?
Yeah, that's real.
So, what are y'all doing to take care of yourselves? Because we can say I'm totally fine, and we're fine. Everything's fine. You remember you used to put up that little the dog sitting at the computer talking about it's fine, where everything is on fire. Like
Yep.
this is literally our lives. Um, what we doing to take care of ourselves? Because it's so important right now for us, but also for the children that we are responsible with educating or raising, or advocating for, right? So what are we doing to take care of ourselves? I need to know.
Well, I know for me, I'm limiting what I'm consuming. Like just everything that's just happening in the world. I don't need to know about every single detail. I don't need to do research about it. It doesn't always have to be me. That's my
Mm.
motto for 2021. It does not
Oh,
always have to be me. And so that's my self-care is realizing that there's just some stuff that I'm just not going to deal with. And this particular situation, my main issue is I just want to know how the kids are responding to it, because remember before this they had Trump rallies and Blue Lives Matter rallies and things that were damaging to kids that look like us happening, in our schoolhouses
mm,
before this.
mm,
And if you've seen the recent episodes of what's happening, there's more threats that are taking
mm,
place online that are harming children, and children do not feel safe in school. And then you add COVID on top of it, where you got 40 some kids being quarantined at a time. Like it's a lot for our kids.
mm.
I'm just worried about our kids and how they're dealing with this, because as adults, like, we're losing our minds, but
We
our
struggling,
kids,
bro.
right. And I'm just like, how are our kids doing? And then you have parents that may or may not have intentional conversations with them to kind of process this. And I'm just so worried about our future generation and what this is going to look like straight
So
up.
I heard you say a few things that I want to highlight. One is having the intentional conversations, right? Now is not a time for us to act like this isn't happening, right? So we need to have intentional conversations with each other as adults, as well as with the little people, right? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? How are they addressing it at school? I think is important, for us to talk about what are their classmates saying, whether they are in a brick and mortar or whether they're virtual. Um, Having the conversation, because when we don't have the conversation, what we're teaching children is this is not something to be talked about. And that's how we have grown adults who can't talk about these situations, right? So having those intentional conversations. But then I also heard you mention boundaries. You said you're limiting what you take in. You realize that it don't always have to be you, regardless of what's going on, right? So knowing our limitations and carving out the space to make sure that you're protecting your peace and protecting your energy. This is a conversation that I have to have with myself all the time, because I have found out I suffer from FOMO when it comes to current events and what is happening in the world. And it's because I feel like I want to know that the world is about to end so I could prepare or something. I just don't want to be blindsided. So I'm always trying to tap in to figure out how to prepare myself for the impending doom, right? To my detriment, because all it does is make my nerves bad. But then when I don't know what's happening, then I'm like, oh my gosh, is something happening? Is there something I need to know? Like, so finding that balance between how do I remain in the know without immersing myself in what's happening is something that I'm still working on because it's tough for me, right? Ashley said too, is boundaries are a struggle for her. It's something that we're working on. I think now is a good time for us to be looking at our boundaries again to see how we're carving out space. Sky talked about exercise. I told you I got my standing desk, right? Because what I know over the course of the past few months, because I work from home, that I'm sitting on Zoom all day, sitting right here in this chair. I might have 2,500 steps in a day. Might. Ridiculous. Okay, if I don't take my behind outside and take a walk or something, like walk up these doggone stairs and like what is happening. But what happens when you're in a state of consistent stress and trauma, you don't have the energy to exert to do exercise, right? So it's like this catch 22 hamster wheel that you're running on, and then we're not giving ourselves grace and space in this process because then we say things to ourselves like, if you don't get your behind up with your whatever, whatever, and we say things and like, I tried to put some jeans on the other day and I was like, oh Jesus. I don't know about this top button, brother. this might not quite be working out. Might have had too many oatmeal butterscotch cookies. Okay. Um, so what am I doing, right, to make sure that I am carving out that space and honoring what I know that I need to do to maintain my physical health? Am I cutting off all of my technology and time to invite sleep into my space, or am I sitting there scrolling on the phone while I'm in the bed? Right, still trying to be in the know, or playing a game or whatever, but have I put that boundary up, like, okay, so at 10 o'clock, that's a wrap, sis. We putting the phone down. Like, we need to be, doing, somebody mentioned earlier, picking up a book. Like, maybe that's the time that I need to be sitting here reading. I don't like to read, so I'm sure I'll fall asleep in 15 minutes as soon as I pick up the book. Now, you know how they say when you read your Bible, all of a sudden, Mr. Sandman come knocking at the door. Maybe that's what I need to do, y'all. I'm coming up with my own self-care plan while I'm sitting here, right? But yeah, are we intentionally carving out that space and giving our children these routines so that they are able to function? Or are they in there on the tablet, in the laptop, in the phone until God knows when? Because we haven't set firm boundaries on what that's going to look like, right? So, as much as we benefit from settling our mind and our spirit, they even more so need that for their spaces because their brains are still developing, right? Um, so those are some of the things that I have been getting on myself about. Ashley also mentioned earlier therapy, and we know that that is often a four-letter word in our community, and we hope that it is beginning to be destigmatized and embraced. But we got to talk through some of this stuff with people who are trained to help us make the connections about why we are processing things the way we are, or why so many of our emotional issues are manifesting as physical ailments. Why, let's say, for instance, we struggle with boundaries, is more than likely we didn't grow up with boundaries. So it doesn't feel normal, right? But a therapist can talk you through that in a non-judgmental space, and it's just so important right now, especially when it feels like we don't have control over anything. Like we were at the mercy, because we didn't even talk about the pandemic for real. you
Right.
know we've been in it so long, it's just like, you know um But there have been so many things on top of things on top of things on top of things. Are we really talking through what that looks like for us, right? The last time that we had a show was prior. Matter of fact, let's address this elephant in the room. We stopped our shows early last year because of everything that was going on, and was like, look, sis, child, I'm just trying to make it to see another day, honey, because 2020 don't wore me out. Okay. Like I don't even know which way is forward. When is Tuesday? Like, what is you talking about right now? Right? We had to
Right.
make that call even with the show. Like this, we don't have to do a hard reset because we have to take care of ourselves first. Right. So then here comes 2021, like we told you to come in here, sit down and be quiet and don't touch nothing, and you come in with the foolishness. So it wasn't, and not that we magically thought anything was going to happen on January 1st, but it was just like, Jesus, can we have a hard reset? Like, my gosh, no, no, not yet. Not at all. So how are we
Yeah.
dealing with that? What is that looking like? What you thinking over there?
So just the mere thought, like, what my wife does, she's a state representative and, we're currently in Tallahassee. Like, we have to leave Tallahassee because these armed protesters are coming to the Capitol.
Yeah.
Like, this is not okay. And so I just hope that people understand that your actions and your inactions determine how we all move forward. And I just really hope that people have intentional conversations with their children, because the stuff that I'm seeing on social media that our children are participating in is just setting a whole nother tier of future adults that will handle stuff in the way that they do now. And
Mhm.
it's not okay. None of this is okay. And so I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and I'm glad that we're normalizing dealing with mental health trauma and what that looks like, because people really need to understand that it's okay not to be okay, and it is okay to get help, and it is okay to talk about it. And you need to talk about it with your children so that they're not making jokes of it as TikToks. They're literally making fun of mental health issues on TikTok.
Yeah.
So just where do we go from here?
Yeah. It's we have a resource list. I just sent it to you, Bianca, in chat. If we can drop that into the comments, because
Absolutely.
this resource list has been curated. It's called Anti-Racism Resources for Self-Care. And it's an opportunity for us to find one safe spaces for us, right, where we exist. I did have the ability to process some of my feelings on Thursday evening in a safe virtual space. And yo, I ain't have no good words, bro. Like, those of y'all that know me know I can cuss like a sailor. Bruh, I strung together a combination I ain't never seen in my life. Okay, honey. But that's what the space was for, right? For us to just be able to bring those raw feelings and emotions and exhaustion just with all of this, right? Um,
Mhm.
we have to find those spaces. So the resource list that we put in there is a safe place for you to find safe spaces, to really be able to process what's going on and what you're feeling. Something else I did want to make sure I was intentional in mentioning is we want to be careful about judging others for how they deal with trauma. For some of us, you might not be losing sleep, right? So somebody comes to you and they're like, man, I can't sleep and, it's really impacting. Child, ain't nobody worrying about that, child. This ain't downplaying it as if, it's not a big deal. This is a big deal. This is a huge deal. This is not a game. This is not a joke. Like, this is not a false alarm. Like, this is a thing. Um, so it's important for us to allow people to go through their process of how they're dealing with this. I'm gonna ask you to embrace that adage: if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. If you catch yourself doing it, call it out. I'm sorry. I just minimized your entire experience, and I realize that's not helpful. How can I be of support to you? Right. One of my best friends stepped in as I was having my mini meltdown for the show and was like, do you need me to look at your calendar and find you some time to like not do anything because you'll be doing the most? Like, can I help you in that way? Yes. Would
Yeah.
you look at my calendar and schedule me a nap or something? Cause I'm nuts. Like, help me, right? But we want to make sure we're advocating. That's the third thing that you had said earlier, Bianca, is advocating for yourself and advocating for your children. Um, we have to say when we need help. And if you're anything like me, I am horrible at this, and anybody who knows me knows it. I am horrible at being like, I am so overwhelmed right now, and just I have so much going on. I don't always communicate that. What I will do is fall off the map. I won't respond to your text messages, your calls. I'm not in a group chat. I'm not on Facebook. I ain't on Instagram. Like, I'm literally trying to get my life together, and it is taking everything in me, right? But I'm not communicating that to anybody. So people are like,
Mhm.
ma'am, you all right? Like, did you fall down the stairs? Are you okay? Right? So that's a personal goal that I have for myself of communicating what is happening and at least advocating for myself to say, I'm not okay. Can you at least pray for me? At the very least, right? But when people are drowning, they are unable sometimes to say what's going on. So we can't be in a space where we are trying to hold people accountable to expectations when they real life just trying to survive. So the way that we approach that should sound very different, right? I know that there's a lot going on right now, and I just want you to know that I'm here. And what can I do to support you? Not, well, I ain't heard from you since blah, 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 but you on the Facebook and you ain't hollered at your girl, right? That might be the only interaction that they can muster, right? So when you think about the amount of strength that it takes to have an actual conversation with somebody in comparison to sharing a post, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to say anything to share a post. I don't have to exert energy to share a post or like a post or put a GIF up, right? But it's going to take a lot of energy for me to have a conversation and try to find the words to communicate the things that are happening that I don't even understand, okay? So I want us to make sure that we're having grace and space with each other. But think about these kids. They don't even have the ability to communicate that. They are just out here, they're fighting, they are short and snappy, like they're crying, they're just having meltdowns left and right. They are stressed. They are stressed. It is stress. And it is not helping if we as adults are not processing our own stress so that we can pave a way for them to be able to process theirs. So we have to do our work so we can help our little people process everything that they've inherited by coming into this world. They didn't ask to be here. They didn't ask to be here in this mess. It's not their fault, right? So we have to give them the space to have their moment. And then we got to talk through that. What are you feeling right now? What's happening in your body, right? Because they're not going to come to you and say, I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm suffering from PTSD. Like, figured it out. Like, that is not what they're going to say. It sounds like, I don't know. I'm tired. I don't know. And they don't know. They don't. It's
Yeah.
not a lie. They don't know, right? But we do. We do know. So I want us to be intentional in making sure that we are being gracious and giving ourselves and each other grace, because this a hard time, y'all. Real talk.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna even hold you. Like this really something.
Yeah.
It's real. It's real. So y'all check out those resources if you find them helpful. Please share with others. Come back, leave us a comment about one that you found particularly helpful. There were a couple other suggestions in the comments, like listening to sleep sounds or meditating using apps like the Calm app or Headspace. But I want to say on this resource list, there are also some other Black curated spaces where you're able to get the same type of thing. There are also resources for you to find a therapist. So there's therapy for Black men and therapy for Black girls is a resource list that's on here. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, we also want to make sure that those that are connected to us are not having suicidal thoughts with everything that's going on. So if you or someone you know is feeling hopeless and helpless to the point where you're considering taking your own life, please do say something, because we have, 24-hour national suicide hotline that can be called. Reach out to a friend, a loved one. Just if you need to come up with a code word that, that's the only word that you say, but those who are connected to you know what that means. Let's check on people, and let's check on especially those who are known to be strong. Let's check on our strong friends, because they're trying to hold it down, but as a strong friend, let me tell you, honey, all kind of balls are dropping. So check on your friends and give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not trying to be a butthole, that they're trying to survive, because we all are. So that's all I
Yeah.
have to say about that.
Amen. You said it all. You said it all.
So I feel like we're gonna have to talk through this for a little bit, because 2 weeks from now we're gonna be and have the inauguration, and we're gonna have some more to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's 2021. We back, y'all.
We back. The whole child. Focus on your kids, please. Your kids need you. And I'm just so heartbroken at the stuff that I'm seeing online and the stuff that our children have access to that some parents don't even know about. Please check on your kids because some of them are not okay.
Amen to that. So y'all make sure y'all holla at your girl, holla at me over on Instagram at Kimberlyn J. I'm trying to do a better job. I fell off of posting big time, but holla at me on Instagram at Kimberlyn J. Also, I'm a life coach. If you are looking for a life coach, somebody who's gonna keep it real all day and all night, holla at me, KimberlynJackson.com.
Thank y'all so much again. Thank you, Kimberlyn, for this phenomenal show. And we're back with the whole child. Make sure that you check us out on our website, www.teachingfortheculture.com. And this episode will be archived on pretty much all of your favorite podcasting streaming services. So thank y'all for y'all support and love. Teaching for the Culture is growing. And I'm just so thankful for the movement that is taking place. So be intentional with your kids, be intentional with yourself, and let's pray. And we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, peace out, y'all.